My name is Ramapriyan. Its full name is Hampapuram Ramapriyan, but I go by Rama, which is half my last name. I'm an electrical engineer by background, but for most of my career, I've been working with image processing and remotely sensed data, and eventually I ended up doing data management with NASA. And I worked for NASA as a civil servant since 1978, and I retired in 2014. And as a retired person, I work for a company called Science Systems and Applications Incorporated, SSAI, which is an organizational member of ESIP. And I work as a contractor supporting the Earth Science Data and Information System project at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, which is where I was a civil servant for many years. I got involved with ESIP before it became ESIP, as a matter of fact. The thing that got started, the process, was a review by the National Research Council's committee that was reviewing EOS-DIS. EOS-DIS stands for Earth Observing System Data and Information System. That was in formative stages in mid-90s, and this committee reviewed EOS-DIS and said, rather than the centralized single system it's being thought of as, it should be managed, developed, and managed by an Earth Science Information Partner. There should be an organization called Earth Science Information Partners. So that's how the federation had to be set up. And at that time, Dixon Butler was the person who was managing the development of EOS-DIS, or he was the headquarters person who was funding, and he was the program executive and so on. And he set up a committee with membership representation from the science community, and he wanted me to help him as his deputy for that committee, that group that was setting up the ESIP. So that's how I got involved. So since then, it got formed. There were some rules of the game that were established, and following that, ESIP got formed, and I've been involved with that since then. One thing that I should mention that has benefited my professional life with NASA greatly is participation in what is now called the Data Stewardship Committee of ESIP. And in the early stages of that, it was called a cluster, data preservation and stewardship cluster. And one thing that we did in that cluster was look at what all the data, what are all the things that you need to preserve along with the data to make it understandable by somebody 30 or 40 years from now, which says that, well, you've got this data, you've got the bits, and you have made the bits available to a user, but if he or she does not know how it was produced, what instruments were used, what satellite they flew on, and what are the algorithms that were used for producing the products that came from that mission. So all these things are ancillary things, are associated knowledge that need to be preserved. Well, the main purpose of meetings like this is to bring people together, and people who are working in similar topics but rarely get to talk to each other. You may be having regular meetings with somebody on a weekly basis or something, but there are other people whom you're not in touch with. And the meetings, the ESIP meetings, especially the ones that are held in person, give you an opportunity to have informal settings where you can talk about topics that are of mutual interest. And I find that quite valuable. Well, if somebody is thinking whether I should go to a conference or not, I would probably tell them a few things that ESIP has achieved over all these years. All the clusters and committees and free and open exchange of information that you don't necessarily get in your daily lives of working with your own small community. This is a broad community with many with many groups that you don't interact with every day. And this provides an opportunity for us to get together uh, to talk about topics of common interest. It also provides an opportunity for proposing new clusters because it's a fully open process, very informal, and there is no hesitation. People speak their mind quite freely without fear or anything like that.